Thank you.
Welcome everyone to another ACO, the first one of 2023. That sounds really weird.
I know.
I am so pleased to introduce Jeri Maier, who I went to school with, but she was an illustrator. And even though I did an illustration degree, I probably ended up being more of a painter and so forth. But many classes with Dana in both Whitney Sherman and did you get a Jose Barrovia at all?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's probably where we cross paths, and Warren Lynn. So some of the greats of the illustration department at Merrill Institute College of Art. Dana went on to actually do something with her illustration degree, and she is the upcoming author of Skip to the Fun Parts, Cartoons, Complaints About the Creative Process. And she has also been a illustrator for the New Yorker, the Daily Shouts since 2018. You may actually have seen some of her illustrations either at for the Phillips Collection, for the DC Public Library, Politics and Prose, some of the DC icons, and also museum hacks. And I think she has some murals scattered around some of the restaurants in the DC area. So you may have run across those without even knowing it. But I'm so pleased to introduce our first illustrator to the ACO, Jeri Maier.
Hey, thanks, Jordan. Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm really flattered and touched to be here. But yes, just to give you some background, as Jordan said, I graduated from MICA with a degree in illustration in 2004. And then I went on for like a one-year grad program in 2005. I did some freelance illustration like right after I graduated, but kind of realized that wasn't for me at the time. I've done some since, which I'll get to. But yeah, I was a little not really into the freelance life. I wanted more of a steady paycheck and to be able to experiment more with my art and be a little weirder, which I'll get into. But yeah, so just to give you some idea of what I was doing at the time, not long after I graduated, we're kind of more of like these abstract sort of drawings. I was using mostly like cheap Staples OptiFlows, which I do not recommend because they will turn yellow eventually. But I really like the way the ink flowed with them. And like, this is an example of something I was interested at the time. Like, these are just, I wanted to focus on like the hands that were playing a piano without actually focusing on the piano part. So these didn't quite fly as like actual illustrations you could use, but they weren't quite fine art either. So they didn't quite fit anywhere, but it was, I was still interested in all the stuff. And you could see they were kind of abstract, kind of not. I was really into like organic shapes with some spot color. Eventually, I started moving on to micron pens, which some artists have mixed feelings about, but at least they're archival. So the work that I've done with them has held up a lot better. And my lines were getting a little more refined. I think for this one, it was like, what does a conversation look like? And kind of, doing a drawing based on that. I was drawing a lot of chess pieces. I just always thought those shapes were interesting, and they sort of added like this instant drama to the work. So this is one of my other drawings from that time. I think I would say I did get a little overworked here and there. There's one trick you can do, I think, as an artist, where if you don't really know how to draw something, you could just hatch a lot and you can kind of pretend that you nailed the shape. So I think, to be fair, I was doing a fair bit of that at this time. But I'll let you be the judge of that. Here's another drawing I did with, you can see again, more chess pieces, very cleverly incorporating coffee stain, or so I thought. I was with this art collective at the time that actually gave me a little award for most chess pieces drawn, as you can see, which I'm very proud of. This is another project from around this time where I was drawing on coasters. Like, I would just get these blank coasters wholesale and, throw them in my bag. And, I had a nice long commute. So, whenever I was bored or just wanted to sketch something or was hanging out, waiting in line, I would just, whip out a coaster and draw something I was seeing. I remember this one is from when I was at an airport and the plane was delayed, and I just drew passengers waiting in line with their luggage. So, which you can kind of get a sense of here. And then eventually I had like 400 and change of these. So I had a show at the Flashpoint Gallery, which is sadly now a coffee shop. But it was my first fancy gallery show. And I sold them, each one of these for, I think, about $50 each. Yeah, it was, I'm really pleased with how this came out. I think I still have a good chunk of these in like in a box in my room somewhere. But yeah, you can see the volume. And then, just some more examples of stuff in this vein. I was getting a little less attached. This was inspired by a trip I took to Istanbul around this time. This was just watching some guy eating brunch. This is one of my other very overly hatched ones, where I kind of just did like a view of a house. And this is like a little map of New York that I just sort of added my own stream of conscious notes to. And around this time, I also started a little later. I kept adding more text into these drawings. They still like didn't, tell like a traditional narrative, but I was, adding like little fragments of thoughts. Like if I was listening to an audiobook when I was drawing, I would add stuff from that. And then all of a sudden, I think the text and the art started getting a little more even. So around 2013 or so, I was really interested in kind of, they weren't quite comics, but they were comic-y, you could say. Here is a little drawing I did where I was kind of making fun of pretentious gallery shows. So you can see like the text in the drawing is pretty even, if not. So I was kind of, just having fun with it. Again, very stream of conscious, but also drawing people, looking at art. Here's a little drawing I did about reading the Sunday paper, and doing the crossword and having a nice breakfast and trying to get, how it's not the same if you read on your phone, little things like that. And here's one I made, which is about going to the gym and all the crazy spin instructors you see there, and why are all the best exercises least dignified looking. So again, very, very stream of conscious. And then eventually I started collecting those into a cartoon called, like a little mini comic, which I called These Things Are Not Allowed, which was one of the other comics I did. And I didn't really know what to do with them, but, I figured like I could put them into, a little book you could hold in your hands and, shop them around at comic conventions. So this is me at the Small Press Expo in 2015. And this was actually the best case scenario happened at this comic convention, which is that a scout came around and was looking for cartoonists for Andrews McMeel Universal. And essentially she said like, hey, would you like a syndicated web cartoon? And I was like, yeah, that'd be great. So that's what led to The Worried Well, which became my syndicated web cartoon on a Go Comics. And here I had a lot of freedom. Like I didn't really, have to have a comic that was a traditional, like 3-panel structure or anything else. I could just sort of do whatever I want. That was, whatever I was thinking at the time. Again, I was into making fun of the art world because I don't know, I was that was something I was always playing with. This is one about how you're supposed to talk about art. This is just one where I was analyzing all of the characters that I was tended to put into my work. Box delivery, bird, figure who might or might not be a stand-in for me, things like that. There's imaginary strangers who are totally judging you right now. And this whole time I had a day job, so I was commuting a lot. I still do have that day job, or at least a sort of different job, same company that's been bought out a couple times. But it involved a lot of commuting. So I did this cartoon about what it was like to try to do art on the train and, look out the window and maybe think that, hey, maybe you're actually writing a book proposal in your head. You just haven't written it down yet. Anyway, I also put it together this other little mini comic a couple of years later, which is called Skipping to the Fun Parts, which might sound familiar. And this was, here, I have an example of it. You can see it's about 8 pages long, but it was sort of my thoughts about, this was a general thesis statement about, I was always kind of annoyed when I would read a creative guide and put it down and think like, oh, this doesn't help me. I wanted to just kind of talk about like what it felt like to be doing art rather than try to just give advice to like, you know, write in your journal more, wake up early, and things like that. I would always get kind of frustrated by. So I would just try to write this very, you know, kind of irreverent panels of just about what it felt like to be, you know, looking at a blank sheet of paper. So eventually around this time, I felt comfortable enough with my cartoons to shop them to the New Yorker, the biggest fish in town. This is me at the New Yorker offices in 2018. Emily Flake on the left is a brilliant cartoonist. She's an acquaintance of mine. Also went to MICA. She was several years ahead of Jordan and me. But she very kindly offered to let me accompany on her trip on one of the cartoonist drop-off days. So what they do on Tuesdays, or at least they did before COVID, was any cartoonist could come by and share their work with the cartoon editor. And if she liked her work, she would grab them on the spot. If not, they would just be like, all right, well, you know, better luck next time. You could just submit them online. Leanna Fink on the right is another acquaintance of mine. Another brilliant cartoonist. You guys should totally look up their work if you don't know it already. And that meeting didn't go amazing, but you know, it was enough to get my foot in the door. And I started submitting some gag cartoons. This is one of my first rejects. And then this is another one for manatees who want their own Shark Week. So after submitting cartoons for a while, I finally got a New York Daily Shout published, and that's the web version of the New Yorker website. And it was a little more my speed because you didn't have to adhere to like a single gag structure here. And that wasn't quite my sweet spot anyhow. You know, I got to play with like larger panels. So this is a cartoon called Fashionable Outfits for Working from Home. This was pre-COVID as well. So I guess I was really onto something here. But you know, the joke is like, these are all the things you're wearing when you're maybe working from home. This is based on Robert Caro, the biographer, who very famously always wears a suit when he shows up to work. And here's another, and I started submitting these and getting accepted, not very often because it's New Yorker, but regularly enough. This one is called The Worst Meeting, Cast of Characters, about some of the people you meet at your meetings online, which I'm sure, hopefully, if you have a job, you can relate. Like the guy when asks, stop asking stupid questions. The person who asks smart questions, but always says, this is a stupid question before. And of course, the graphic designer taking notes, but really just drawing a sick dragon on his iPad. This is one of my favorites as well, Secret Shames of the Queer Eye Guys. I was always hoping that they would find this and share it themselves, but none of the Fab Five ever did. But, you know, we got Tan Francis clothing chair, Jonathan Van Ness's secret bottle of Axe body spray, and Anthony eating a bowl of poutine over the sink. He's Canadian, so that's the joke here. So this one was kind of my breakthrough. This sort of changed my career trajectory. This cartoon called Know Your Procrastination Style, which went not viral proper, but viral enough on Instagram that I got the attention of a literary agent who I kind of knew, who was like, hey, do you want to, you know, have you ever thought about writing a book? And I was like, yeah, that'd be amazing. So if you remember this thing, skip to the fun parts, I realized that like throughout my creative life, I'd kind of had a lot of cartoons about art making, and that seemed like a good through line through all my work. And it eventually became my book proposal. Skip to the fun parts. We took off the ing at the end because this sounded a little punchier for the title. And this became the actual book after many, many, many cover revisions. So the book is a combination of like some of the art I did before. I even used some of the drawings that were from the little panel into this, the same thesis statement one is in it, the to declare, this is my story, I'm going to share it regardless of my level of talent and your level of interest. This one is still in it, and several others. And here's a table of context just to give the idea. I was lucky I had a really good editor who was really helpful in helping me structure it. So I talk a lot about, like, you know, the same problem that I had, where I really wanted a book that would kind of help me solve my creative problems, and then that never actually happened. You know, what it's like to stare at a blank piece of paper, get out of the house to clear your head. What it's like, there's a whole section up on procrastination, of course, who are caring for critiques and feedback and all that stuff. And I also have an essay in here I really like. I'm not sure if my aunt and uncle are on the call, but their granddaughter, Flory, is one of my artistic inspirations. Just because I remember going and seeing her work up in Vermont several years back, and just being really inspired by how free she was and just how good her drawings were. Even though she's only 6, I just thought that there was something in them that would be really hard to capture as an adult. And I think a lot of folks who have, you know, small children probably might feel similar, where they really are just, you know, kids hit the sweet spot where they'll just draw anything and they have all this conviction. So that's when the first essay in the book, and they very kindly allowed me to use some of the original art. Yeah, so that's what I got for now. Let's see. The book is now, like I said, available to pre-order. I have some essays in here about, let's see, how it's useful to have an artistic nemesis sometimes, feeling kind of weird about vision boards, you know, feelings about pens, and, you know, what a good pen should inspire you to do, things like that. And I think that's all I got for the presentation. So you know, open to questions now if you have them.
Who's your artistic nemesis?
I'm not telling. My editor has asked me several times. I wouldn't say.
Have you always had one?
No. This is kind of like a. I mean, it's not like a nemesis. It's somebody who you kind of use as, like, you know, sure, just for funsies, not somebody who actually who you wish harm.
Right. Okay. Oh man. So can I jump way back to, like, the very beginnings? Like, how did you know that you wanted to create a process? Like, I think most people know that they want to move into something creative, and I'm speaking from my own kind of experience, and maybe you can kind of relate to this. Like, Micah did both painting and illustration. Yeah. And knew totally after 4 years of illustrations, I could not hack what you guys do. So I went a different direction. But how did you know illustration and cartooning was kind of your thing?
I guess I stumbled, you know, it's funny because I graduated with a degree in it, and I thought it would be my thing. I realized it wasn't. I guess I was kind of more on the fine art side. And then I sort of slowly found myself going back to it. So I don't think I made a conscious decision like, oh yeah, now I'm an illustrator again. It was more like it found me. I don't know if that's a satisfying answer or not, but yeah, it was sort of strange how that happened, because I think I felt similar to you when you graduated. Like, this is, you know, this is for a very specific type of artwork and a very specific type of artist. And for me, I wasn't really quite there yet, and I wasn't even sure if I would ever get there necessarily. But I figured, you know, as long as I was drawing stuff that, you know, seemed to come naturally to me and that I was interested in, you know, I just kept at it.
Yep. Cool. Would you mind stop sharing screen, and then we can get the community back, and then we can actually, cool. Let me see here. I have to switch my view. All right, cool. Yeah, well, if anyone else, now I can actually see everybody else besides just Dana. So if anyone has additional questions, shoot them out here. Otherwise, I'm gonna unload on her.
And this is Trisha. Your work is very charming. It makes me smile, but I especially smiled at your at the characters in your office meeting. They're very recognizable types. They're just unique. And I think that's an incredible talent to be able to do a cartoon that I'm sure those people would recognize themselves if they saw your pictures. They're quite, the loudmouth with his mouth open, and the other characters I thought were fantastic. So much individual personality.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I was very careful so that I'd have like plausible deniability in case any of my actual coworkers saw them. Like, oh, I'm not talking about you, of course. And
do you ever get in trouble about that?
So far, no. We'll see what happens in the future. But yeah, so far so good. Yeah, they don't really. I don't know. Like I kind of share cartoons with them every so often, but usually like, oh yeah, that's cool. But nobody's super interested in it at my regular job, so I think that's actually pretty helpful.
Good, Mariana.
This is so wonderful. Thank you, Dana. I wanted to ask you, how much of your art school training, and I don't know what you study when you go to the illustration path, are you using, would you say? I'm fascinated. It's so beautiful.
Oh, that's a really interesting question. Gosh, I mean, yeah, I mean, because it kind of, you learn how to do stuff in art school and then you sort of forget that you know it.
Although it's inside you.
Yeah. Like I think, yeah, I mean, there's stuff I think about every day.
Like the confidence to draw something that isn't, accurate. I would think you have to kind of throw it away a little bit. To be able to be more genuine about the naivete you want to express sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's ways you can do that and it looks like, oh yeah, this is totally what you were going for. And then there's ways where it's just like, oh, maybe you just don't know how to draw very well. So you have to find that right balance. Yeah, I think, gosh, I'm trying to, because every so often, like I'll be working at my, desk or something and something will pop into my head like, oh yeah, that's what, Jose would have said. But
and I have a question about those little squares you said. Did you buy them as coasters and then you carried them with you?
Basically, yeah. I just bought them wholesale. They were 4 by 4 inches in cardboard, and I think they were like 20
They're
bucks.
beautiful.
100. Oh, thanks. Yeah.
They're great. I think it would be a nice show, at one of our galleries in Gleneco. If you want to ever do that, apply, we can orient you. But they're wonderful. Barbara.
I think your work is wonderful, and I got some wonderful laughs out of it. I wish we had lingered more on individual slides a little bit, because it was a little hard to absorb, but it was fabulous. Did you in the beginning talk about favorite tools, what you like to sketch with? Would you repeat that?
No, she didn't. That's a good question. That's what I meant.
What you recommend if you're just casually observing things with a notebook or on
your favorite tools.
Let's see. No, they've changed a lot over the years. I think I said in the beginning I used to use like really cheap pens from Staples, which I like just because they have like a really satisfying like ink flow to them, but they're not archival. Then I moved on to microns, and I think most of these are done with microns, or maybe some of the Staples pens still. And then for the stuff I was doing a little later, these are all microns. I moved on to like a speedball pen. So these are the pens I was using before. I was very, interested in portability. And then, sorry?
Dip pen?
Yeah, basically a dip pen. They're cheap. This, like a nib is $1 and this holder's maybe $2. And yeah, I think, whatever I can get that's waterproof. This kind of is Black Cat, but yeah, I haven't noticed too much of a difference between different ink brands. So mostly these, go ahead.
sorry, when you integrate color, how do you think about it? It's very strategically placed, I would say, by looking at your images, but I'm sure, what's your thinking process about that?
Yeah, it's funny because I avoided it for so long, or exactly because I thought like, oh, any color I add is going to be arbitrary. And yeah, now I've kind of gotten more into, I guess, embracing that. I think, what's a good example of color? Yeah, right now it's still pretty, what's the word? I don't really think about it. Yeah.
Random.
Yeah, like I think, and a lot of times, like if you're drawing an illustration, like, oh, well, obviously, his jeans are going to be blue and the shirt's going to be white or something like that. But a lot of, I do enjoy it at times where like the colors don't have to be anything in particular, like, with a clothing chair, where you can just kind of, be like, oh, I feel like making a pink garment and then put it on top of a blue garment, and why not? And basically just getting to play and, be really, be very,
just spontaneous or
exactly. Yeah. When I'm not really thinking too hard, but yeah, I think sometimes the color, if I overthink it, then it gets away from me. Yeah, with this cover. Oh, go ahead.
We have a hand raised too,
yeah.
Mariana.
Lisa.
Silvana, do you have a hand raised?
Hi, Dana. I have 2 questions. I was having so much fun taking your ladies drawing night class workshops that you were doing. I think it was 2019.
Oh yeah,
yeah. And I wondered,
wow.
I remember reaching out to you, when the pandemic started, and was curious if you were offering or thinking about ever offering online virtual workshops. Have you done any of that?
Oh,
or
you know what?
In that?
No, nice to see you again.
Yeah.
I haven't done any online classes. My publisher might want me to when I kind of start shopping the book around more. So stay tuned for that. I think.
Okay, great. And the other thing I wanted to ask you was the photo that you showed when you were at the New Yorker. You mentioned 2 cartoonists, but I didn't get their names, and I'm curious who they were and who some of your favorite cartoonists are.
Yeah. Let me put their names in the chat just so you look.
Okay.
Great. Let's see. Actually, I don't know if I have access to that.
Yeah, yes.
Should.
Oh, wait,
you can just find the chat if you're on it.
Yeah. Okay. So
I think it's in the 3 dots. Like you.
I got it. Okay. Emily Flake and Liana. I would say just Google them.
Thank you.
Work, but yeah, all their work is amazing. Yeah, so I really like. Yeah, I'd say these guys are definitely favorites. I grew up in the DC area with an artist called Richard Thompson. I'm not sure if you guys have heard of him. He kind of managed to fall under the radar. But he's a really brilliant artist and illustrator and just draftsman. But he's known for the cartoon Cul-de-sac, which is about the Otterloop family. Like it has a, parents and a son and a daughter, PD and Alice Otterloop, and it's kind of just about their adventures in the Washington DC area. So it has that local angle, and it's really, I don't know, all of his art is amazing, but the cartoon in particular, I think, is kind of where he got his name on the map. But yeah, I was always looking at his work growing up, and I think he's still one of my favorites. He died, unfortunately, I think in 2016 of Parkinson's. But I'll put his name in the chat too. If you don't know it, you should definitely look it up because it's just incredible and really funny.
Yeah, how do you decide, like, what makes a good cartoon? Like, where do you pull sources? I know, like, everyday community, things like that. But like, how do you decide if it's good or not? Like, do you have a springboard? Is it just Ralph, or I'm sure he has the brunt of it, but
no, I think that's probably that's the hardest one, because a lot of times you'll have an initial idea and it's and if you keep poking at it, maybe like this has legs, I can deal with this, I have enough to say. And then sometimes it's like, all right, I did this is fine for like a, you know, just a short thing, but I can't really expand upon it without straining, and that sort of kills any humor in it. But yeah, now having a second pair of eyes is definitely very helpful. I think crucial.
Is there ever like a cartoon that you just think this is so funny, but no one else thinks it's amazing?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
hard.
Yes, I definitely, that's definitely happened. I'm trying to remember some specifics. Definitely on my, well, I don't know, like I have like a load of like rejected gag cartoons for the New Yorker, and some of them I'm like, hey, this is, yeah, I see why this was rejected. Okay, fine, no argument there. But there's a couple that are like, oh, that's pretty good. You should have given me that one. I don't have any off the top of my head that I could put in
Did
this.
they reject the Manatee Week one that you showed?
Beg your pardon?
Did they reject the Manatee Week you showed?
Yeah,
that was cracking me up.
I like that one too. Yeah, I thought that had a fighting chance.
I think it's probably the cartoons that sometimes resonate and sometimes don't. Like on the Manatee, I didn't finish reading before you switched the slides, so I didn't get it, unfortunately. But I can always replay.
Oh yeah, there you go. Sorry,
which is really good. And that's for everybody. Watch the replay, because the YouTube videos, we record them so you can slow it down and get names or whatever. But sometimes I think you have to be in a certain mood, and that reading the same cartoon may make you crack up one day and not another day.
Yeah, that's definitely part of it too.
And sometimes I think that's the best humor. Lisa, you have a question.
I think your work is terrific. Question, I'm curious about the font style, the writing that you use. It seems to be distinctive for each cartoonist uses their own particular style of lettering. And can you talk about how you came up with that?
Oh, sure. Oh, and thank you so much. Yeah, I think a lot of it is the pen. Well, the handwritten stuff is just my handwriting, but it definitely varies depending on the pen I'm using. This is using a, what is it? Kind of like a pen like this, just like a Japanese brush pen.
Brush pen.
Yeah, but well, not like a super like loose brush, but like a more of a tighter brush, like used for calligraphy. And then my handwriting when I'm using a speedball looks, when I'm using something like this, it looks more like this. It's thinner. So I kind of prefer the look that this text a bit more. Like I think if I had to choose, this seems a little less neat. I guess. Yeah. So for most of my book, I put the text in. I wrote the text with the speedball. And try to get that. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. Do you ever use the Tradio Pentel pens? They're ones that have a soft nib, but it's a plastic thing that can get. Anyway, I can email you.
Yeah, no, I'd love to see. Yeah, I'm always happy to try new pens. That's one of my favorite
Thank
things.
you. I have a question, since you said you spent a couple of weeks on your honeymoon, and congratulations again, recently in Japan, and I want to know how many pens you brought back.
Oh man.
Because Jordan sent us pictures of an incredible store in Tokyo, which I was salivating just at the pictures.
That was a art store. Pigment was they had other stores, but Pigment was more of a museum than an art store.
Oh, I see.
An art store.
I know the one you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you end up buying a lot of them?
Yeah, that was, oh God, that was a while ago. I don't remember offhand. I do know that like all the pens that I like now, I usually just go to like jetpens.com, which is like % Japanese pens.
Yeah.
But yeah, they have this one I really like. It's the Tombow.
Okay.
And you could probably help with the pronunciation. Fuden Osuk. Actually never said the name out loud. This guy.
You said jetpens.com?
Yes, yeah, go there. They got every pen under the sun, and
I'm putting
they
it
even
in
have like sampler packs.
chat.
Like if you just want to like, you know, spend $20 and get like an assortment of like 8 pens or 10 pens. Those are always fun.
Dana, can you talk a little bit about like the sketchbook and what that means for you? I mean, when you work in a sketchbook, are you thinking about a product, or is it simply for practice, or how do you relate to how the sketchbook is used?
Oh, yeah, sketchbooks, I think, let's see, lately they're definitely good for,
Living room sketch.
I use them more for when I'm traveling and just on at my desk. I think I have, at my desk, I don't tend to use a sketchbook. I see them more as like, you know, things I would, you know, at my desk, I kind of just use any paper I have on hand, you know, the bad stuff if I'm just sketching out, if the good stuff if I'm trying to be a little more formal. But yeah, but sketchbooks are mostly like, you know, something I throw in my purse when I'm on the go, and either, you know, just need to jot something down really quickly so that I don't forget, or, you know, if I'm at a museum and I just want to like sketch paintings or drawings that I see there, just for practice or for fun. So yeah, they're mostly, yeah, I just kind of see them as very like, I don't know, it's rare that I use them if they're not portable. Though that's not 100% true. I do have like a sketchbook in the living room that I call my living room sketchbook. And that's just for the drawings I do on the couch. Just because,
Is
you know.
that the one that Ralph was showing?
Wait, was he showing a sketchbook?
Yeah.
Oh, wait.
Living room.
Oh, yeah, that one, living room sketchbook. Sorry.
That's great.
Yeah.
Should we have one in every room? Do you recommend?
Yeah, I mean, because if you don't feel like getting up and, you know, you're just like, you know, you got to embrace, or not embrace, but lean into your laziness. So if you just kind of accommodate it with a sketchbook in your room, then yeah, it makes it easier.
Once you have an idea, do you go to the paper and complete it, or do you have different drafts?
Oh, I have loads and loads of drafts. Usually it's very rare that I can get something done the first round. For the New Yorker, usually you just submit them like black and white sketches, sometimes with it typed up, or, you know, sometimes not. I try to make it as finished as possible, just so that I, you know, because, you know, neatness counts. And I think if they see something a little cleaner, they're more inclined to take it. But yeah, a lot of times I'll go through drafts, and I have a tracing, I use a lot of tracing paper. I have a like a little, what's it called, light board that I love, because a lot of times in my sort of work, I'll, like, if I'm doing like a really simple shape, but then when I did it really quickly, that's hard to reproduce, tracing it over and over again just helps me get it exactly right. But I'm not sure if that stuff is necessarily obvious in the end product. Like, I'll know, like, oh, that nose is a little wrong, I liked it better in this version. But, you know, it's a lot of that stuff tends to be like the stuff only you notice, and not necessarily other people.
I never even thought of that. Like, when you have an idea and you send that cartoon to, let's say, the New Yorker, do they write back like criticism? They change this, change the text, change the drawing at all, or is it like, how does that even work?
Oh, it depends. I think my first cartoon, they said like, I like this, but I only had like 4 examples. Can you send us 4 more ideas? So I'll get stuff like that. But then
I was thinking,
make sure you meet guys. All right, go ahead.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. And then for like the text itself, they take their copy editing like super seriously. So like if an M dash isn't working, they will tell you to fix that.
Oh, wow.
Like an M dash or like a semicolon, or just like the teensiest bits of, you know, punctuation. Yeah, they'll be like, oh, you have to change that before you can publish it. But yeah, usually it's not as much criticism. Usually it's like they take it or they don't.
Did they ever come to you with like, we have this idea, we need you to illustrate it?
No, I haven't gotten to that point in my career yet. Maybe someday.
Dana,
not for the New Yorker, at least.
How much, if any, digital work do you do, if any?
Well, everything I do is always scanned into Photoshop and touched up there. In
By
terms of
you or by editors?
By myself. For the book, it was a little different because they had a whole team of people who were on that.
Wow.
But yeah, usually I do that myself.
So you do digital, some digital work.
Oh yeah. Like a lot of times it's way easier to like collage stuff in Photoshop
Right.
than it is.
Yeah. And Photoshop is the main program you use.
Yeah. I've been playing with the Procreate on my iPad a bit, but yeah, I'm still not quite. You still getting the hang of that.
I understand. Yeah.
I think we're all
And how
seeing-
much of each day would you say you sit at your desk or you are somewhere where you're drafting and sketching?
Oh,
Do you do it every day?
yeah, at least a little bit. Yeah, I at least have to sketch something a day. But yeah, it varies a lot. Like, if I'm on a deadline, then yeah, it's several hours. If or if I'm, in the middle of a submission, then yeah, but sometimes, all I'll do is work in my sketchbook or my living room sketchbook, and that'll be it for the day. And which is I always feel a little bad about. I feel like, it's not a real day unless I have at least an hour or two at my desk, but sometimes it doesn't always happen.
But life takes over.
Yeah.
And can you talk a little bit about sources, like where do you go to find what you want to draw? Is it always like a museum, or do you just wander to a coffee shop and watch people, or how does that work? I think pre and post COVID, my drawing changed so much just because I was so, I got used to like kind of drawing anywhere. Like on the train, I would do a lot of, life drawing because there were just people to watch who were looking at their phones. So that was easy to, put in your sketchbook. But then after that, it's been more my imagination. Like I think I've kind of just been able to work at my desk and not really, and just start drawing, but not really like be looking at anything in particular for inspiration. But I do try to, I think drawing at museums is important because I think, that's sort of I don't know, maybe it's the art school in me. Like you always kind of feel like you need that, like, that seems like sorry? Like a foundation kind of thing, or
yeah. Like I need that classic, experience of just like seeing how the old masters did it, or, make sure you remember how a face looks and what proportion is and that sort of thing.
When you go to the museum, do you go for artists that are more on the, I don't want to say illustrative side, like a Lautrec or something like that, or is it, does it change, or like, I have my go-tos. Like if I go to the National Gallery, there are certain rooms I have to go see.
Yeah.
But is it like, does it shift like that, or do you have, I don't know. I'm not sure I know what to ask you.
Yeah. No, like your regulars.
Like, do you copy in an illustrative form old master paintings who are like high classic oil painting? Like, does that have the same effect for you, or is it? No,
I definitely, there is something about copying the old masters. It just feels like, I don't know.
No, it's like when I think about doing a copy, it's like, well, I'm going to be truthful and everything's exactly the same way. But I imagine when I've seen your cartoons of like people in the museum, they're definitely more of you've taken an old master, it's very recognizable, but it's done in a way where it's your style, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Like I don't feel like I have to make it like you said, like a copy, but you're still like seeing how they made things and getting that sense of it. But yeah, I think it kind of depends. Like I have this little cartoon in my book about going to the Phillips Collection and just like sketching there. Not sure if you can see it, but I used it as an excuse to just sort of like copy a bunch of like drawings and paintings that I liked, but in my
wow.
Yeah.
So you do take
that I painted sort of.
Oh, hold that up. I want to see that. Higher. That's actually a pretty good Rothko. Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah.
So you
go ahead.
in the museum, are you, I guess, sketching a little bit? They don't let you bring colors, right? Or anyway.
They don't. I mean, yeah, I wouldn't like roll up my watercolors, but no, I usually use like a pen.
Right.
Yeah, pens they don't seem to mind, even though
Yeah.
technically I think you're only supposed to use a dry media, but
Right.
I've never had anybody give me
Right.
trouble for a pen.
I was wondering how much you use the museum to actually watch the other people watching or seeing the work.
Yeah, no, that's
very interesting source.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that's important too. I think just having people you can draw without them really noticing. Yeah, but I don't know, like I always feel like, I think also the older I get, like the more I think like,
Yeah.
you know, it's just good. I don't know, going back to the basics is just so, I don't know, it like cleanses you a little. I don't know if that even makes sense, but it feels.
Do you take photos and use them in any way to inspire you or to feed into your sketches?
Oh yeah, all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I use photo reference. It's less fun because you're just kind of like, you know, taking inspiration from like, but yeah, I've used like, oh, I need the pose for somebody eating soup. I don't quite know how that works. I'll have a pic, you know, Ralph will take a picture of eating soup, or maybe I'll, you know, do a quick search. But yeah, but I you know, since, you know, it's so easy these days just to take pictures wherever. Yeah, it's definitely something I do a lot.
So now that you're like at the, I would kind of say like New Yorker is kind of like one of the top of the food chain, as you said. Like, where do you go from there?
Well,
it's a death question, I know, but
I wouldn't say it's the top. I mean, I think the top of the food chain in the New Yorker is getting in their print publication, which I have not yet done. So I think that's probably my next step. I mean, the New Yorker website is a little different, but still, you know, it's under the auspices of the New Yorker, so you still get the bragging rights. Yeah, I think I'm trying to think. I guess.
Do you have a 10-year plan kind of thing, or like, once you do this, I need to do this, or, you know, for us, it's like, I need to get in that gallery, I need to get art fair, I need to have this kind of thing, or I need to make this amount of money. I don't know.
Well, my agent is going to expect a second book from me at some point, so.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So I think I need to be
A book
working on
entirely about cats.
Yeah, there you go. Go cat book.
Cats and chess.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was actually thinking, yeah, my next book, yeah, I'm reluctant to talk about it because it's still such a
okay, you don't have to.
idea. Yeah, but I might have to interview for it at some point, actually. It's very arty. So
nice.
I'll be knocking on your door.
Liana.
I love your work and thank you so much for being here and talking to us about it. I'm so fascinated by your early work with the chess pieces and wondered, have you turned any of those drawings into any kind of book or series anywhere that you've printed?
Not really. I had this like little mini comic I did. I don't know if you can even call it a comic, but it was kind of in that really abstract vein. And I had some of my drawings in that, along with some like written text. But yeah, that one it's pretty old. So that would, I don't know, like you could have gotten it at like a comic convention in 2012 or so, but I don't really have any copies left, unfortunately. But yeah, that was mostly, yeah, I kind of just put them, because I don't know, I always like the idea of having something you could hold in your hands to look through. And I thought that was like a nice place for these drawings, but yeah, they haven't really, they don't really exist in a book other than that, unfortunately.
So I was wondering if you've ever thought of taking the humor that comes out now in your work and transferring that to chess pieces.
You know what? Maybe I should do that. Maybe that'll be my book. Yeah. I think that's a great idea.
It's always come full circle.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe.
Well, you're so masterful at both. And so I thought, wow, that would really be fun to look at and see your take on that.
Yes.
Ironically, I'm a very bad chess player, but I still think the pieces are fun. So
yeah, and they could talk.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Leon, I'm actually shocked that you didn't ask a question about the hands playing the piano without the piano.
Oh, that was wonderful. That's really wonderful. And also, there's so many of us who play instruments that it's so hard to really draw them realistically, and to take the approach you've done. It was wonderful. I really love that work. But yeah, I have a nephew though who is very interested in fine micron pens. I bought numbers of them for him over the years, and he's also a masterful chess player. So that was why focus of my question. I thought, I really wish Stephen could see your chess line drawings. He would be so inspired. That's why I wondered if you had published them anywhere.
Oh, that's so nice.
Yeah. Or if you have them online. Do you have a
they're
website?
online? Yes, they're on my website.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So you can see
very cool, because I'll refer him there.
yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, no problem. Yeah, I put my website there. If you go to, I think they're under black and white drawings.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, very good. Thanks very much.
Yeah, no problem.
Cool.
Great.
Any last minute questions before we let her get back to her early Saturday?
No, well, do you think would you let us know if you start a group of sketching? You were saying that you had it before during
Yes, definitely. Yeah, I had this thing called Ladies Drawing Night Against Humanity. It's kind of a ladies drawing night / Cards Against Humanity mashup. So,
that would be good.
Yeah, it hasn't happened since the pandemic, but I think, I will let you know if that happens again, because it was fun. And,
it would be wonderful, and maybe
You
it
have a
could be
studio you can use.
ladies and men's drawing.
Oh no, I can stay out of this one.
Oh no, but no, it leaves half the population without a resource. I don't think.
Oh come on! All right.
You can do an evening, Jordan. Oh, gentleman drawing.
I don't think it has the same flair. But
I think that's a great idea.
Unisex drawing against humanity. Yeah, I think that's
right. Drawing against humanity.
Idea. Well, thank you so much, Dana. It was absolutely a wonderful presentation.
Wonderful. Yes.
We're very grateful that you could spend your time with us this weekend.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm so flattered you thought that.
And just a reminder, everyone, you can pre-order her amazing book, which just the few pages we've seen looks really good. So it's definitely worth your pre-order. And we hope you'll come back and host an event for us, please.
Yeah, please. And we will invite you again as your career progresses. That would be lovely to see you again.
Oh, thank you so much. Oh, no, I really appreciate it.
Wonderful.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Happy New Year.